Good day, I am Steph and I will be discussing today the chapter 1 of our research entitled The Relationship Between Self-Concept and Self-Efficacy of Grade 7 Students in SPCB. Maddox in 2009 infers that self-efficacy is a main determinant of the behavior people choose to engage in. It is a factor that motivates a person to do the task. While self-concept is how you perceive yourself on how good you did on your task. Our research is supported by 4 theories: self-concept theory, self-efficacy theory, self-concept clarity theory, and self-enhancement theory. Self-concept theory is supported by Carl Rogers. It is based on who they think they are and who they think they will be. It states that we already have a person in our mind that we think we would be in the future. Self-concept clarity by Joseph Campbell states that we 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 have a clear and confident thought of ourselves in our minds. The self-efficacy theory by Albert Bandura states that a person's self-efficacy can be modified or maintained. Thus, people are capable of being influenced to pursue more motivation in their performance according to their personal competency, specific environment, and planned action or interactively influencing one's self-efficacy. For example, a person's self-efficacy is, is greatly affected by the environment, how he perceives himself or herself, or the activities. Our self-efficacy when we were younger is different from our self-efficacy as we grow older because we experience more challenges. We are more we are influenced by the people around us, by the ideas and thoughts of other people that modifies our self-efficacy. In our conceptual framework, our input has self-concept under it are academic, social, emotional, family, and physical. Another one is self-efficacy, which has high, moderate, and low. The processes we used are correlational research design, data collection via standardized tests, analysis and interpretation of data, which leads us to our output relationship of self-concept and self-efficacy of grade 7 students in SPC. The significance of the study is that for the students, this may serve as a tool for them to understand more the self-concept and self-efficacy and use it in their lives for them. For the parents, this may serve as a guide for them to help their children to improve more on their skills and for the parents, this may serve as a guide for them to support their children. For parents, this may be a guideline for them to support their children to improve their skills and for the teachers to encourage their students to also be participative in their lesson and not only listen to the teachers instead of putting the lesson in, in the instead putting the lessons which instead putting their students in the center for them to instead putting their students in the center for them to apply this self-concept and self-efficacy methods to improve their lessons. For the administrators to reassess their programs and to improve their activities in line with this new study of how they can improve the students' self-efficacy and self-behavior, efficacy and self-concept. For the SPCB community to not just be a for the SPCB community to not just be a mere community that's present in the Polinians, but to be an efficient help to the students. For
Good morning, everyone. I am Sofia Santiago from group number 5, and I am tasked to present the chapter 3 of our research paper, which is research methodology. A part of the research methodology is the research design, and we, the researchers from group number 5, used a non-experimental correlational type of study. And this type of research design sought to determine the relationship between your chosen variables. And for our research paper, we used self-efficacy and self-concept as our running variables. For the research respondents, the chosen respondents for this study were the selected grade 7 students from the 4 sections of St. Paul College of Bukawi. These 4 sections are St. Rose, St. Scholastica, St. Therese, and St. Agnes. The total population of the grade 7 level is 188. Then we use the Sloven's formula to get the sample population with a margin of error by 5%. So the sample size was originally 127.86, then it increased to 128 because we rounded up the decimal point. The Table 1 is presented in the Chapter 3 of our research paper. It is entitled Frequency and Percentage Distribution of Respondents. So for the first column, we have the grade 7 sections, which are St. Agnes, St. Rose, St. Scholastica, and St. Therese. So for the frequency, they all have 32 and a total of 128. For the percentage, they also all have 25% and a total of 100%. So for the research instrument, for our independent variable, which is the self-concept, it was measured using the 5-factor self-concept questionnaire, or AF5. It is a psychometric testing tool designed by Garcia and Mositu in 2009. It has a 20-item measure which uses a 4-point Likert scale ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree. While for the dependent variable, which is self-efficacy, it was measured using the new General Self-Efficacy Scale, or the NGSES. It is also a psychometric testing tool designed by Gilad et al. In 2001. It is an 8-item measure which uses a 5-point Likert scale ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree. We have also presented the table number 2, and it is entitled as Code Scale and Verbal Interpretation for Self-Efficacy. So for the first column, we have the code scale, and it ranges from 3.34 to 5, and its verbal interpretation is high self-efficacy. Then for the next one, we have 1.67 to 3.33, and its verbal interpretation is moderate self-efficacy. Then the next one, 1 to 1.66, verbal interpretation is low self-efficacy. So next, for the data gathering procedures, we first secured a master list for the enrolled grade 7 students in St. Paul College of Bukawi for our sample selection. Then the selected respondents were first oriented and guided by the researchers before they were administered of any questionnaires. Then this whole data gathering process was all done last year of December 2019. Then the researchers filed all the answered questionnaires. We organized, calculated, and interpreted the gathered data according to the given values of the AF5 and the NGSES. The researchers also did not implement any type of intervention, and we didn't require any form of manipulation between the chosen variables. So next, for the statistical treatment and validity, the researchers used the Pearson product moment of correlation to determine whether there is a significant relationship between their chosen variables between self-concept and self-efficacy. We have also presented the table number 3, which is entitled the Pearson product moment of correlation coefficient. So for the first column, we have the coefficient 1 and its verbal interpretation, perfect positive correlation. Then for the next one, 0.71 to 0.99, strong positive correlation. Then the next one, 0.51 to 0.70, which means moderately positive correlation. Then the next one, 0.31 to 0.50, which means weak positive correlation. Then the next one, 0.01 to 0.30, which means negotiable positive correlation. So this Pearson product moment of correlation became our guide to know if there is a relationship between our variables. Then for the next one, which is 0, which means no correlation. Then the next, negative 0.01 to negative 0.30, which means negotiable negative correlation. Then the next one, negative 0.31 to negative 0.50, which means weak negative correlation. Then the next one, negative 0.51 to negative 0.70, moderately negative correlation. Negative 0.71 to negative 0.99, which means strong negatively correlation. Then the last one, negative 1, which means perfect negative correlation.
I'm going to discuss the summary of findings in Chapter 5. Problem number 1. What is the profile of the respondents in terms of gender, self-concept, and self-efficacy? For gender, 50% of the respondents are male and 50% of the respondents are female. For self-concept, the percentage of the respondents who exhibited the highest level of self-concept on the dimensions of life, 5.47% for academic dimension, 26.56% for social dimension, 1.56% for emotional dimension, 38.28% for family dimension, and 6.25% for physical dimension. 28 of the respondents exhibited 2 or more highest level of self-concept on the dimensions of life. So for combinations, 10.94% for social and family, 2.34% for academic and family, 0.78% each for academic and physical, family and physical, social, emotional, and family, 3.13% for academic, social, and family, and 1.56% each for social, family, and physical, and academic, family, and physical. For self-efficacy, 73% of the respondents have a high level of self-efficacy, while 27% of the respondents have moderate level of self-efficacy. There are no respondents who have low self-efficacy. Problem number 2. In which dimensions of life did the respondents exhibit the highest and lowest level of self-concept on the dimensions of life according to gender? Out of the 5 dimensions, both male and female respondents exhibited the highest level of self-concept on the dimensions of life within the family dimension, with a value of 13.72 for male and 13.47 for female. On the other hand, both male and female respondents exhibited the lowest level of self-concept on the dimensions of life within the emotional dimension, with a value of 9.34 for the male and 8.17 for female. Problem number 3. Which level of self-efficacy is the most and least common according to gender? For the both males and females, the most common level of self-efficacy is high, while the least common level of self-efficacy is low. Problem number 4. Is there a significant relationship between self-concept on the dimensions of life and self-efficacy in terms of gender? There is no significant relationship between the two variables in terms of gender because the computed R value is -1, which denotes a perfect negative correlation. Problem number 5. Is there a significant relationship between self-concept on the dimensions of life and self-efficacy? Yes, there's a significant relationship because the computed R value is 0.98, which falls within 0.71 to 0.99 range, denotes a strong positive correlation between the two variables. Tables 4, 5, 6, and 7 on Chapter 4 will support problem number 1. Table 8 will support problem number 2. Table 9 will support problem number 3. Table 10 will support problem number 4, and Table 11 will support problem number 5.
Let us now discuss the conclusions we have derived from the summary of the findings. For our study's first conclusion, the respondents exhibited the highest level of self-concept in the family dimension. This conclusion is in line with Schaefer's claim in 2005, in which he defined family as the figure who constitutes a vital role in the social environment of a child. This also corresponds to Fugel, Dunsmuir, and Curry's statement in 2013, which states that the family is, indeed, the primary environmental context for most people. For our study's second conclusion, the respondents have a high to moderate level of self-efficacy. This inference is supported by Muthuri and Eris's conclusion in 2017, which states that self-concept progresses throughout a person's lifetime. This means that an average individual tends to have higher levels in their younger years, which decreases as age increases. For our study's third conclusion, there is no significant relationship between self-concept and self-efficacy in terms of gender. This inference is supported by Goldman and Penner's study in 2017, in which they concluded that gender is not an important aspect in determining one's self-concept, especially in gender-egalitarian countries. Furthermore, Shkuliku in 2013 and as well as A.B. Deal-Modeleb and Sahar in the same year, also concluded that gender is not a significant factor between the academic dimension and self-efficacy. For our study's fourth conclusion, there is a significant relationship between self-concept and self-efficacy. This inference is supported by one of this study's main theories, the self-enhancement theory. It states that each individual is motivated to maintain a positive self-concept, and that they would, therefore, act upon it to maintain such thought. It is also in line with Crawford's conclusion in 2013, as his study's findings showed that a student's self-concept is related to self-efficacy, specifically in the academic dimension.
So, what are some recommendations? Who will benefit from all of this? Well, the future researchers are the ones who will going to benefit from most from all of this research, our research and our works. So, what can they do from our research? Well, first thing is that they can conduct further research on how one's self-concept in the different dimensions in life can affect their self-efficacy, which is how we perceive ourselves. And the second thing is to find out on other factors on what that may relate to their studies' current variables. And this can be, well, academic standing, leadership experiences, and previous school, and many other variables to our research as well, other variables. And these are just minors, but simply some important recommendations to the future researchers can be conduct a follow-up study with altered factors. It can be, second is look into other variables that can answer problems that were not addressed to the study. And third and lastly is they can seek more related literature, which they can use this, our study, to be a literature to further prove their claim or study. And the second group of people who can greatly benefit from all of this are the school administrators. The administrators are obviously the ones who administers the school, and they can see everything. They implement change, and because of that, they can implement our research studies into the school itself in order to improve the academic atmosphere, so that they can improve the students' well-being there and to exceed them in terms of that. And so what are some of the recommendations? And so the first recommendation is to take part in the enhancement of the students' perception formation, and especially in regards to their academic, emotional, and social environment. And the second recommendation can be is to create a great interactive program or programs that can improve the academic well-being or competencies of the students. So of course, they can, they can create a more unique program, because if it's unique, the students can find it fascinating, and if they find it fascinating, they will exceed in that program, and it's really good to ignite their curiosity because of that, and it can greatly improve their academic competencies. Sorry. And the third one is to give school tasks to them that can help the students in working on their optimism in accomplishing an easy, average, and difficult task. And lastly, the third group of people who can greatly benefit from our research will be the parents. They're the ones who are the most closely attached to the students, and that they should convince them to improve about their academic well-being. And the parents should know how their children succeed, and they can improve this by studying the research. They should know the research. The parents should implement this at home, so that before school their children can be motivated by their let's say advices. So because obviously the parents are the first teachers in our lives. And that's all of the recommendations. Thank you. I'm Daniel Soriano reporting.